Welcome to my personal archive. I am the Keeper. This isn't just a crime channel, it's a record of our fascinating inability to be normal. Here, we open doors that should have been locked forever and analyze the fingerprints that darkness leaves behind. If you seek comfort or easy answers, this isn't the place for you. But if you have the stomach for the naked truth, pull up a chair. I have the keys. In the late 1990s, Brazil discovered that the rainforest wasn't the only place where predators hunted. Francisco de Assis Pereira, born in 1970, was the kind of person commonly referred to as smooth talker. A pizza delivery man, then a motorcycle courier, and eventually a parking attendant in Sao Paulo. A lower middle-class man with too much free time, a strangely inflated self-esteem, and an uncanny talent for lying without blinking. Generic charm, automatic smile, and an almost professional ability to fake empathy. Between 1997 and 1998, Pereira revealed himself as more than just another face in the crowd. He became a walking statistic. 11 confirmed fatalities, all women, all lured by the same bait. The promise of a professional photo portfolio and a supposed modeling career. An old trick with a modern twist of calculated cruelty. His method was simple and effective. He approached women at subway stations, shopping malls, or busy streets. He used his functional charisma to convince them that he had contacts in advertising agencies, that they had the look, and that they deserved a chance. Then he led them to Parque do Estado in the southern zone of Sao Paulo, an urban fragment of the Atlantic forest, isolated enough that screams wouldn't make the news. There he flipped the script. From photographer to predator, seduction became control, then violence. It was always the same cycle: persuasion, isolation, dominance, homicide. Some victims were abused before death, others after. But Francisco wasn't only after pleasure or control. He wanted to erase the victim's identity, eliminate her from the urban narrative. He buried the bodies under branches, leaves, and damp soil, like a pathological gardener cultivating silence. The most disturbing part? The frequency and the confidence. In just over a year, he lured and killed at least 11 women. The number could be higher. There's strong evidence that other victims were never found, or worse, never even looked for. Disposable victims in a system that rarely takes the disappearance of young, poor women seriously. Francisco kept a diary. There, he wrote erotic fantasies with a militant obsession for control, submission, and violence. Psychologists called it narcissistic personality disorder with sadistic and obsessive traits. A fancy name for what the victims would have called hell if they had survived to tell. The police got to him by luck. The investigation started with the disappearance of Valentina de Andrade, but the connection between cases only became clear when families of other victims noticed patterns. Young women attracted by vague career promises, last seen with a man on a motorcycle. When the composite sketch was released, the home of an acquaintance of Francisco became the turning point. She saw the sketch in the newspapers and realized that the park he frequented was the same one where bodies were appearing. She called the police. Tension rose. Francisco ran, left everything behind, including his motorcycle, traveled by bus like any citizen trying to vanish in a continental country, hid in southern Brazil, changing names, cities, jackets. But the look stayed the same. Technical report, urban predator eyes. He was arrested in Itaqui in Rio Grande do Sul on August 4th, 1998. The disguise was poor. He tried to plead insanity, of course. like almost all of his kind. But Francisco wasn't insane in the strict sense of the word. He was functional, articulate, and fully aware. During interrogations, he described the crimes with clinical detail, without remorse. He said he felt pleasure and guilt at the same time. A moral conflict? Maybe. A performance to seem more human? More likely. At trial, families heard the cold description of how their daughters were hunted like worthless prey. And the system heard it too. He received the maximum sentence allowed by law, 268 years in prison. Practical translation, 30 years. The cap imposed by Brazilian criminal law at the time. Today, Francisco de Assis Pereira remains imprisoned, though married and receiving benefits for good behavior. In 2024, his sentence progression was reviewed. The state remains hesitant. Society, less so. His case wasn't just about murder. It was about the use of trust as a trap, about how charm can be a weapon and vanity a vulnerability. Lessons, a few. Women disappearing and no one noticing for months shouldn't be normal. But it is. Francisco wasn't a criminal genius. He was a common man with an uncommon appetite, someone who realized that in a big city, all you need is a bit of patience, a good story, and a secluded spot to commit repeated atrocities. And Parque do Estado? It's still there. Tall trees, dirt trails, birds singing. But to those who remember the bodies found beneath the leaves, the urban forest has become a monument to silence. The park maniac didn't just kill. He proved the human jungle can be as dangerous as the natural one, and that behind an ordinary face, something might live that even the predators of the Atlantic forest wouldn't dare compete with. Carlos Eduardo Robledo Puch. A delicate name. An angelic face, a blonde, blue-eyed Argentinian born in 1952 in Vicente Lopez, a quiet suburb of Buenos Aires. In another context, he could have starred in advertising campaigns, maybe for milk or children's cologne. But in the 70s, his only spotlight was the crime news. By the age of 20, Puch had already killed 11 people, 10 more than the average beginner serial killer. Unlike most, he didn't hunt by pattern. He didn't rape out of sexual impulse. He killed out of convenience, or boredom, or because breathing the same oxygen as someone already seemed like reason enough. His reign of terror began in March 1971. Alongside an accomplice, Jorge Banez, he broke into a store and killed the night guard with a shot. Then he stole what he could and vanished without a trace. Criminally, Puch was efficient. He killed witnesses, avoided fights, preferred when the other side didn't react. Cowardice elevated to an operational level. Over the course of a year, his criminal routine intensified, with new partners, all of whom ended up dead or murdered by him after they served their purpose. Puch robbed workshops, stores, and homes. He kept an emotional distance from the crimes, as if playing a video game with infinite lives. There was a disturbing pattern. He killed even when he didn't need to, shot people while they slept, or executed them after they had surrendered. In some cases, he set the scene on fire after the crime, becoming an occasional pyromaniac. In April 1971, he broke into a house with Ibanez. That's where Puch killed a couple and then smothered a months-old baby. The detail is that there was no risk. The family was asleep. The crime was coldly gratuitous. Months later, Ibanez went from partner to problem. In a classic act of tying loose ends, or maybe due to pure homicidal paranoia, Puch shot Ibanez in the back of the head while he slept, then set the house on fire with the body inside. It was the third partner killed under similar circumstances. The Argentine police began to notice a sequence: crimes with no direct connection, but with the same kind of execution: precise shots, fires, and quick disappearances. In police records, he earned a nickname almost poetic: El Ángel de la Muerte, the irony of aesthetics. The final straw came in February 1972. During a poorly planned robbery, Puch tried to break into a motorcycle shop. The owner showed up. The result? Shot in the face. But this time, the police arrived fast. They found Pucci hiding, along with the weapon and a curious collection of documents. These documents, fake IDs, stolen items, and diaries, served as a timeline for the carnage. Some entries described the crimes with coldness. Others revealed an adolescent with diffuse rage and a sense of grandiosity. Narcissism and murder go well together, especially when masked by youthful beauty. The trial was quick, so was the psychiatric diagnosis: narcissistic psychopathic personality. No surprise. The sentence: life imprisonment with no access to parole. Puch has not left the penitentiary system since. Today, over 70 years old, he remains locked up at Sierra Chica Prison. Same cell for 5 decades. No public remorse, no visitors, and the same aging angelic face. The most interesting part: his main threat wasn't just his lethality, it was the absence of clear intent. He had no cause, no specific trauma, no predictable ritual. He killed because he could. It's not a logical timeline. It's a collection of destructive impulses wrapped in the body of a narcissistic teenager with access to weapons, nightly freedom, and a slow police force. The press ate it up. Images of a handsome, blonde, apathetic young man filled Argentine newspapers. He was the opposite of the stereotype. Serial killers in the public imagination should be deformed, monstrous. Puch was the reverse Frankenstein: angelic face, predator mind. In the years that followed, he tried to show remorse, wrote letters, tried to appeal to psychiatrists, but it was too late. His initial coldness condemned him more than the crimes. Argentine society also never forgave him. His name became synonymous with absolute evil. In 2008, Puch requested parole. Denied. He repeated the request in 2013. Denied again. Argued good behavior. The court countered with a simple word: zero trustworthiness. Over the decades of silence, Puch became a living relic of what happens when emptiness meets freedom. He wasn't a victim of abuse, didn't live in poverty, wasn't a political rebel. He simply enjoyed watching others disappear. Crime as aesthetics. Some say his greatest trauma was his own ego, a narcissist with borderline intelligence and just enough social skill to manipulate, but not enough to seem genuine. El Ángel de la Muerte wasn't just a product of his time. He was an outlier who remained constant for 50 years. A brutal reminder. Sometimes the monster looks like a magazine cover. It doesn't have to be broken inside, just empty. And in that emptiness, any impulse can become a massacre.